Well, everybody, welcome to the Lovecraft eZine podcast. Bridget's here. You just can't see her. We can't see you. You're still eating. Oh, there you are.
I'm here.
You're done with your apple?
Yes. I just didn't think people wanted to see like
Crunch.
chomping on my apples. So I'm good now.
Okay, so anyway, our guest today is Raven Daegmorgan. Hey, Raven.
Hello.
Raven's an old friend of mine, going years back, and he's also a writer. So we'll talk to him a little bit. We'll talk about apparently Matthew Carpenter, since he's not here. I don't know. He suggests the topic and then he doesn't show up. So Pete Rawlik, I thought he said he was going to be here. I feel betrayed. Oh, there's Pete.
There's Pete.
On the dot.
Yeah, on the dot.
Yeah.
Okay, now you can no longer talk about Pete. He can hear us.
You look like a master criminal with a fan.
Oh, yeah. All right. Well, what we were talking about when we went live was The Matrix and the 13th floor. And that the 13th floor was more thoughtful than The Matrix. And The Matrix kind of drowned it out in the theater because it came out right at the same time. So yeah, if you haven't seen it's sad watching old people try to traverse technology, isn't it, Pete? Yeah.
What's wrong?
I'm not even going to tell you. You can watch the video later. It's like talk to the hand, Pete Rawlik's hand.
Okay, so here's the deal. I couldn't get in on my laptop, so I went in on my phone.
Well, yeah, your laptop is Commodore 64, basically.
Yeah.
So
yeah. All right. As usual, if you're watching live, let me know that you can see us and hear us. And as usual, thanks to my son for helping with the tech side of things. You know, it's really no fun giving Matt Carpenter shit if he's not here.
Why is Matt not here?
I don't know. He said he's going to be here. So, Rich, you saw Spider-Man, and you got that's spoiler-free thumbs up.
Yes.
All right. Can we say anything else about it on air without spoiling it?
I don't think I can.
Okay. Is there an after credit scene?
Yes.
Okay.
Is the I don't think it's going to ruin it. The end after credit scene is actually a trailer.
Right. And
Yes.
I'm sure it's not hard to guess for what movie.
Right.
Since it's the next Marvel movie coming up, Multiverse of Madness, which, as we briefly discussed before we went live, looks like there might be some cosmic horror in that one, of course. I mean, Multiverse of Madness, just the title alone, without seeing any of the trailers.
that must be
Being a Sam Raimi movie.
Oh yeah, he's yeah.
Yeah.
I
that's going to be what, the next Doctor Strange movie?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Then it's definitely there's going to be cosmic horror in that.
I always tell this story that I was one of a group of entertainment reporters, quote unquote, that were on a phone call interviewing Bruce Campbell when Ash versus the Evil Dead came out. So it came time to ask my question, and I said something about, were you a Lovecraft fan growing up? He's like, oh, hell no, Sam was the one into all that shit later, or something to that effect. So I don't know. It's been like 6 years, but he was like, no, it was not me, it's Sam. So I'm like, all right. But yeah, if he's directing and it's called Multiverse of Madness, I'm sure there's going to be some cosmic horror. So anyway, let's do introductions, and then we'll talk to Raven. I'm Mike Davis, Lovecraft eZine. Hopefully people know that by now after 8 years, but you know, you never know.
New viewers.
Yeah. Bridget.
Hello. Bridget Brenmark, creator of music and art thingies.
Haunting Melody.
Yes.
And you did a thing. I want to ask you about this after we talk to Raven, but Season Screaming.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Oh, awesome. You have to tell us about that.
Yes.
All right. Pete.
Pete Rollick, longtime listener, first time caller.
What else do you do?
I watch bad movies, so you don't have to.
That is true.
True.
So, Rick.
Rick Lay, writer and pulp magazine collector.
All right. So, Raven, you wrote a book called The Dog. This is my review copy. But that's basically what it looks like. It's a novella, and it's also available on Kindle. So I've got the link in the show notes. So folks, you can just click on it from there. But what happened was, if you remember, Raven, you sent me the novella to get my thoughts on it.
Yep.
You know, and then I said, hey, I want to publish this because I was looking for novellas and because I really, really liked it. So
yeah, that was pretty thrilling for me. I'm like, oh, I just want some feedback, and then you're like, hey, I'd love to publish this.
yeah, you have some nice reviews at Amazon too.
I do. I
So-
check some of them, though. I'm kind of leery about checking the whole reviews thing. Just
Oh,
as,
yeah,
yeah,
only look at the 5-star reviews.
right. Yep.
Of which there are many. I noticed there's one
Right.
on there. It's a great book, but it arrived in bad condition. 1 star. I'm like,
Yep. I saw that one too. I'm like, that doesn't help.
that doesn't have anything to do with me, even as the publisher. Yell at Amazon.
Right? Yeah. I saw that one. I was like, oh, 1 star. That's sad. I wonder what they thought.
But it's
This has
pretty
nothing
cool.
to do with the book.
Yeah, it's been out roughly a year, and it's pretty cool that that might not seem like a lot of reviews, but for a novella and for a small press novella, getting reviews is one of the hardest things.
Yeah.
You know, and sales is right up there as hard things to do too. But we've done respectable for a small press, and you got some nice reviews out there, which is rewarding.
Yeah, definitely.
What so you're just writing this, you're not really thinking that it's going to be published anytime soon. What's the origin story for this novella? I mean, well, first tell people what the novella is about, just really briefly, and then the origin story.
Sure. The novella is about a man who lives alone. He has a large, scary dog in his backyard, his fenced-in backyard. And it's about his life and all these upsetting situations he encounters, and the fact that he actually pours all of his rage into this dog through mystical arts that he learned from his father. And it just gets, it gets kind of darker from there, as it should. So
Yeah, Lifetime is going to scoop it up any moment now. Yeah,
definitely a Lifetime movie. Very heartwarming.
So like a sin eater?
Yeah, in a way, very much.
yeah.
Of course, the dog isn't choosing to be a sin eater.
No.
Yeah, there's a difference there. So what's the story behind writing it?
So I don't think I ever told you this, but I actually wrote it back in 2005. So it's
No, you didn't.
yeah. So
And only today did you tell me when we did the video test, you're like, oh yeah, there's a really great story behind that. So I'm hearing this for the first time.
yeah, you're hearing this whole thing for the first time here. So yeah, so I wrote it originally in 2005, and I got some feedback on it, and it just kind of sat. Part of the issue was the ending. I wasn't happy with the ending. That is not the original ending there. And that was based on some feedback I got. It was too short. Didn't have enough punch. And then so it sat in my drawer for, oh geez, until I contacted you about it, pretty much.
So about 10 years, no, about 13 years.
Yeah, about 13 years. Yeah. So
Yeah.
And then I finally decided, well, I know Mike, he publishes, quality books. He knows other authors. Maybe I'll just send it to him and see what he thinks. and so that was how that finally got out there. But so if you've written a book 13 years ago, you can still.
Next thing you know, if you follow this up with my email address, actually, everybody knows my email address.
And everything.
Lovecraft at Gmail. Yeah, I do. I mean, I'm always up for good novellas or novels. I love novellas.
So that's sort of, it's sat for a while, and I was writing it, and I've been thinking about why I was writing it at the time. I was going through a really difficult period there. It was kind of in the middle of this period that I wrote it. A lot of it, I took huge chunks of my own life and dropped them in. Some of them I spun around.
The dark arts part?
No, not.
Oh, that's
I toned that down.
Storytelling.
Yeah, that part is true. But no, so I was a really rough period, and actually that went for 16 years. I was in an abusive relationship, and that comes out in the book. Obviously, I flipped the character. The main character is violent. No, well, I don't know if abusive, but there's stuff in there that relates to that.
Yeah, it is a very dark book, and I don't know, it just grabbed me from the start. But anyway, yeah. Going with.
But yeah, so I was going through this stuff, and maybe that's why I put it away for so long, is I just wasn't dealing with it. I'd written it all out in paper and gotten it down, and tried to deal with that issue, and then of course I got out of that. I got out of that relationship, and then a few years later, I was looking through my hard drive at all the old stories and story starts that I've collected over the years that I've just kind of left there and haven't done anything with or tried to do things with. And
yeah, well, we've all done it, right?
Where it came from. Yep. And of course, there's I'm trying to think, how do I talk about this without giving a whole chunk of the too much of the book away. Mm-hmm. But yeah, like I said, I filled it with all sorts of things from my own life. There was my dog is the basis for the dog in the book, but I did not treat my own dog this way. So
I had my hand halfway to the dog 911 number. Yeah.
But yeah, so that's the basis. We had some, there's neighbors that are in there that I actually had that names have been changed. And I imagine the main character, the protagonist, works at a radio station. And so I dropped that in there because I was a radio personality for a number of years. And it was just like, you know what, write what you know, that's what you're always told to do. And it worked, it fit. And so.
Conveniently, I heard someone's dog in the background a minute ago.
That might have been.
That could not have been timed better.
Excuse me, I need to go deal with now. It's probably one of ours. We've got a bunch of dogs, and they are loud. They're probably a leaf went past the window.
Yeah, I'm going to interrupt you for a second. Matt Carpenter showed up late, but he's here, and you want to introduce yourself real quick, and we'll get back.
I
to
am
Raven.
Matt. How you doing?
And you got a prize.
Yes, I have a hardcover copy of Act One of Providence by Alan Moore.
Hardcover yet?
Yeah, this is part 1 of 3, so it's not the whole series. It could give you a taste for it. Maybe even the best part, because it doesn't have the really obnoxious, offensive bits in it. And the artwork centered around the Dunwich Horror is really amazing by Jason Burrows. So if you want to win this, send an email to ezineprizes@gmail.com. Put Providence in the subject heading. We'll probably be choosing a winner late January, so you got plenty of time to get in an entry.
Raven.
Yeah.
You've heard the show quite a bit, I think. And you know all the crap that Matthew Carpenter gives to me. All the shit about, how much am I paying him to be a panelist and so on and so forth. Well, you got to love Facebook memories because.
But, Mike, is any of that untrue?
No, I'm not. Yeah, I'm paying you with. I mean, you should be. Well, let me just read the quote. So no, it is not untrue. So from this best of 2016.
5 years ago. Nothing's changed in 5 years.
Looking back, here's a quote. one of it, and it is really, Matt does these great looking backs. But Mike Davis, this direct quote, Matthew Carpenter, Mike Davis should charge money to his panelists to be on because it is so much fun.
Obviously, I was high and drunk.
Well,
So-
you know, the internet never forgets. And sometimes,
And the internet never lies.
yeah, it never lies either.
Everything I read on Google is true.
So I'm going to get back to you with the fee amount soon. So now Matt does a lot for the show, the prizes, so on and so forth. So, but yeah, the book is available on Kindle Unlimited, by the way, for those of you who are thinking of this. And if you don't have Kindle Unlimited, it's on Kindle for, I think, $2.99. I think we priced it at. Yeah. And it is available in print too. How did it go from, life experience to as Pete said, the sin eater part?
I'm sorry, the what?
The sin eater.
Oh,
element.
trying to think how that popped into my head for that.
A long time ago.
It was a long time ago. I don't remember how that actually came about.
Well, what are
I was just,
some?
I was,
Yeah.
I've read a lot of occult books and so forth, and magic and Kabbalah and stuff. I was big into reading all this stuff and conspiracy theory stuff, and I didn't believe it, but it was fun. It's fun reads.
Yeah, it's
me.
kind of like listening to the old Art Bells. I don't believe a word of what's going on, but it's entertaining.
Right, yep. And I'm certain there was something in there about some kind of sympathetic magic where, you're doing this thing to remove this unwanted feature, but it has to go somewhere. So.
And the added element of that this animal doesn't have a choice makes
Right.
it even more tragic.
Yes.
And adds to the story.
Right. Yep. And there's of course, there's the background then with the family and why the protagonist is doing it.
Yeah.
One of the things I was hoping came across in the book, and I don't know if it does or if it's just me, is that the protagonist is, yes, he's this terrible person who's abusing this dog, and there's all sorts of bad things in his life. But he literally started doing all this to try and protect his family, and then of course, from himself. And then later it turns into he's trying to protect the community. But is it
At the same time, he hates his neighbors.
right? Yeah, with good reason. I mean,
Yeah.
if you read, what these neighbors.
Some of it's like, man, I'm reading this and I'm like, well, I feel that way about some of my neighbors.
Right. Yep. And it's so yeah. So I was trying to go for this. I'm trying to walk this line while writing it of he's a terrible person. It kind of an anti-hero thing going on. And I don't know if I meant to do that to start with, but by the end I was like, yeah, this is where we're at. It's not just a bad guy. He's a bad guy for a good reason, but it's not.
Well, he's definitely an unsympathetic character, but at the same time, he's a sympathetic character. Everyone's the star of their own life, kind of thing.
Yeah, and we've all had those feelings about other people, our coworkers, our neighbors,
right,
and so forth, and so that there is that element of I don't give him a name throughout the book. There's no name. He's just this guy. So I was trying to do a sort of, it's because we all have those kinds of feelings and hopefully we don't act on them. It's kind of trying to do an everyman sort of character.
That's interesting because what we did was when we had talked about it being published, then you and I would talk once every week or two and do some editing over the phone. And I believe I asked you that question, was that deliberate? And Scott Thomas did the same thing in his novella, The Sea of Ash, which kind of started my small press publishing thing. And his guy is pretty much an everyman too, who's lucky enough to win a lottery ticket so he can, indulge all his indulge his hobbies, buying rare books and so forth. But other than that, yeah, he was a school teacher, etc. He just was an everyman. He deliberately does not give him a name, even though he's one of three, you might say, protagonists in the storyline that are searching for the same thing, more or less. So,
Okay.
so yeah, I don't know. What do you got writers think, Pete, Bridget, Rick, of not giving a name? Does it seems to me that you create more of an everyman situation, like Raven's saying, for the reader, you know, putting yourself in the character of the protagonist.
Yeah, it creates some a certain anonymity that you can identify easier with. It also allows the reader to fill in more of the details that they would assume.
Mm,
You know,
yeah.
you just, oh well, you know what, this guy doesn't have a name, I'll just give him a name. I'm reminded of Neil Stephenson's Snow Crash, where the main character is Japanese and Greek, and his name is Hero Protagonist.
Right.
Yep.
Just you make it very simple, and then you suddenly identify it with them more completely than you ever did before. So
There's a detective series years back called the Nameless Detective Series.
Yep.
Remember that?
Yes, and there are a whole bunch of things like that. There's the Nameless Detective. There's a couple of there's a series of comics that I like called The Dead Detective.
Okay, well, what about Clint Eastwood? In a lot
The
of his
Man with No
westerns?
Name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what's your name? Well, it doesn't really matter, does it? In one movie. Yeah. Anyone else want to weigh in on that? Not Matt.
Actually, the man with no name has a name in each movie.
Yeah.
He's
don't-
Joe. He's Manco and Blondie.
I prefer him with no name.
That was just a marketing trick for that somebody in the U.S. thought up,
Okay, well, it worked for me.
even though he doesn't have a name or a nickname at least.
Raven, go ahead.
Oh, and let's see, Odysseus, who used the pseudonym Nobody.
All right. Yep.
And there's a couple stories that I've read, including one I've written where the character names is Noon, Noone, which is no one.
So wait, on Odysseus though, that's like him being extremely deceptive. Was it to Polyphemus?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You never could
Okay.
trust Ulysses. Cyclops
Well-
just wants to eat a few sheep,
Right. And to me, it sort of goes hand in hand with the unreliable narrator. I'm so unreliable that I'm not even going to give you my name. And that works in the opposite direction. So it can create a sense of, I can't trust you. So there's a lot of different plays you can have with that concept, and I like it.
What kind of horror did you read growing up, Raven? What attracted you to horror?
So this is an interesting story. I did not read horror as a kid. I did not like horror. In fact, when there was a birthday party that my cousin had, and everyone decided that they were going to watch this horror movie. And so one of my other cousins and I said nope, and we went into the other part of the house with my aunt and watched, I don't know, some police procedural something instead. So yeah, I was not a horror fan until like my 20s actually. So and that's when I got into Lovecraft, and that's when I started actually watching horror movies. And I don't know what switch flipped, but I must have watched something that I went, oh, this is pretty cool. And before that, it was fantasy and sci-fi. I did read Bradbury, so there was some. I know that has elements. It's not really straight horror.
Depends
But-
on which Bradbury story you're reading.
Right. I read
Yeah.
S's for Space, and my grandmother was not thrilled about it because she read some of the opening lines. And
know,
I'm like,
I didn't read much horror growing up either. I read a ton of Bradbury, sci-fi, not real life, true to life novels, or just what I want to say, just regular novels, I guess. And then I don't know, about 19 or 20, I started reading more horror, but I can't remember why. So, and didn't get into Lovecraft till I was probably 19 or 20.
yep,
So,
yeah. Lovecraft was
which is not the
a
usual story.
late, right? No, it's usually you find him early. I found him late. I think he was like the last step. I actually read or started reading The Moon Pool by Abraham Merritt, and I never finished it at first, but then I eventually jumped into Lovecraft. I saw the covers, the Whelan covers. Everyone knows those books, I think. And grabbed one. It was one with the dream cycle in it, which is still, I think, my favorite part of the mythos.
Yeah,
is-
Michael Whelan has sold more Lovecraft books than
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know many people who don't recognize the. Oh yeah, that series.
Yeah,
with the-
that's
the
why I
Whelan
picked it up. I
covers.
started reading
Right.
Lovecraft.
Yep.
Yeah, for me, we interviewed Gus Moreno a couple weeks ago, and he's got an article at LitHub where he talks about how much he loves being scared. He accepts that. When he watches horror or reads horror, it's because he loves that feeling of being frightened, but in a safe environment, so to speak. Paraphrasing him badly, but for me, and maybe if you started with The Moonlit Pool, maybe for you, it's more of this sense of there's something behind the curtain, and it's hinted at, this sense of dread. It's not jump scares, but the sense of dread, or this sense of there's something out there and we don't know what it is. We may never know what it is.
Right.
That type of thing.
Yep. Yep. And that's so film. I'm really big into film. Alien and Aliens are two of my favorite movies, and they're big on that. You don't see much of the monster. Most of the horror is all, where is it? What's going on? That kind of issue.
Yeah.
Yep. And so I've never been into the really straight up at all, ever, even now, the straight up gore slasher, outright horror flicks. Just it's not appealing.
Yeah, same. And whoever does, if you like them, I'm not looking down on that. Everyone
Right. Yeah.
likes different things, but yeah, it's Pete, sort of like Jaws, not showing up until the middle of the film.
Yeah, I'm all for monster. Give me a good creature design and
Sure.
hold back that creature design for as long as possible. And then, when you do the reveal, give me snippets so that I have to put it together in my mind. Like Alien did a really good job of that. The Ritual did a good job of that. In the Mouths of Madness,
Cloverfield?
what's that?
You say Cloverfield?
I didn't say Cloverfield, but I'll go to Cloverfield. One of the best things I like about Cloverfield, and when it comes to creature design, was the parasites.
Yeah.
That fell off of it and created bigger problems. But I think the bane of creature design has been the ability to freeze your image on screen.
Oh yeah.
At the Mouths of Madness was never meant to be able to be stopped. But now you can flip through all those images and see what those creatures that only were on the screen for like 3 seconds are. And that sort of blows everything.
Yeah, I rewatched Oculus the other night and told my mom about it too, and she is into horror. So, but she texted me today and she's like, "That is one scary ass movie," and I'm like, "Yeah, it's a pretty good movie," but it's got that quiet horror element, at least to a certain point, and in the beginning, in the early parts of the movie, it's like, did that mannequin turn its head, or did I just imagine that happening, or did I just imagine something in the corner there? And yeah, Danielle would laugh if she was listening to this, but me, I would be like, I'm freezing it or going back. I'm like, oh, that's so cool and everything. But if you're watching it in the theater, you're right, you can't do that. So,
Which may be one of the great things about Absentia,
yeah,
is that you don't see much of the monster at all.
yeah, not till the end. Yeah, Mike Flanagan did Oculus, of course, too.
So we just watched Rare Exports for movie night last night.
I love Rare Export.
You
It's
think
great.
you've met Santa, but you just met an elf. And they never show what Santa actually looked like, except he had these huge horns sticking out of an ice block. And I thought I liked it just the way it was.
Yeah, it's perfect.
They did do the illustrations, but of course those varied. So, of Santa with boiling the kids and all that other thing in the old book. So that was the only thing you had to go on for what's inside this giant ice block.
And he's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's not coming down the chimney. He's coming through the wall.
I'm going to post this into the show notes later, and I'm going to put it in the live chat right now. But I sent this to you guys in our Facebook thread the other day, if you remember. Speakima Movies on YouTube, SPIKIMA Movies. He did one that caught my eye called Anatomy of the Scariest Scene Ever, where he talks about this. Did any of you guys watch this, or did you just pretty much ignore everything I type in there?
I watched it.
Did you? What'd you
I
think?
did. I thought it was good. It was a good assessment of why that particular scene works, because of expectations that we have in a scene, because of what horror movies over the years have trained us, but also just our natural instincts. That was a pretty good description. Yeah. I actually haven't seen that film, but I want to see it now.
Yeah, I do too. And he also talks about in there that the closer, if it looks kind of almost human or close to human, for some reason, it's even more scary, or creepy, or whatever word you want to use. Oculus, it up to a point it just keeps building, where you're not sure what the hell's going on, and that's a good thing. And the same thing is true of Absentia. Mike Flanagan said when they finally showed part of the creature, Pete, he didn't have a budget, so it was a twig, and things that they did to it.
Yeah.
So,
And then what was the Bird Box?
mhm,
Same thing.
yeah.
I was going to say about the human-like, I think you hit the uncanny valley.
Yeah.
It just creeps everyone out. So if you get it close to human, but not human, you're really tapping into that.
Well, so you like horror movies now?
I do. Yeah.
And horror books now, I would assume. What are some of your favorites?
Oh,
Movies
geez.
and books, as far as horror or weird fiction or whatever goes.
Oh boy, I could list off all sorts of stuff. Like for now, what are my favorites? Oh,
Sure. Oh yeah, if you ask me, I'll change from week to week.
right. Yeah, I couldn't even give you an idea of what my favorites are right now. I can tell you what my favorites are, like my base established. Oh, I
Yeah.
love these particular books.
Yeah, let's start with that. go with
Well, I
that.
guess my original, and like I said, I started off in fantasy and sci-fi, and Tolkien was my initial plunge into fantasy. I think I was like 5. I started reading really, really early. So so I read Tolkien, and then I remember a couple years after that, we were at the bookstore. I grew up in a small town, so everybody knows everybody. And my dad goes to the owners of the bookstore and says, "Hey, do you have anything else like this?" And that's how I got into Terry Brooks.
Mm.
And I loved his first 3. Of course, I was pretty young when I read them, but I'd have to go back and redo a read. But I seem to recall his first 3 novels were really
It's
well put
really,
together.
it's very safe to say that he is very much like Tolkien.
Yeah, it is. It is. There have been a lot of comments on that all over the place.
There's an
Yeah,
interesting, there's an interesting story about the history of that.
Yeah.
They, Terry Brooks wanted to sell those to Ace Books when it first came out of paperback.
Mhm.
And Ace Books had already been sued by Tolkien for putting out unauthorized editions of Lord of the Rings. They said, "There's no way we can touch this. Go to Bantam, which publishes Tolkien, and you'll get away with it."
Wow, that close?
Yeah, that is based on an anecdote told by Donald Walheim, who was head of Ace Books at a pulp convention.
Well, I think that, yeah. I think
Bridget-
that was the, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say that was probably the right move anyways. As I recall, his Brooks' original editor was excellent. And apparently his entire second novel was redone completely on his editor's advice. They apparently had an excellent working relationship.
For those who are wondering about this YouTube video that I'm talking about, you can always click on it later because I'll add it in the show notes. But for those of you driving in your cars, listening to this later, the movie's called Cairo, Kairo, or Pulse, I guess.
Yeah, it's the original Japanese version of Pulse.
Okay, DeBronzo says it's on HBO Max right now.
It's a damn creepy film, and yeah.
Okay. Well, I know what
it's
I'm
worth
watching tonight.
Yeah, it's got some. I mean, it's low budget. I mean, the whole concept lends itself to low budget, so you know, be aware of that. But I think it really, really works.
Yeah. And it's an interesting dissection of the scariest, and at least in this guy's opinion, the scariest scene in that movie, and one of the scariest scenes in any movie that he's ever seen. So that's definitely worth watching alone. So what else, Raven? What else do you enjoy reading?
Well, Howard,
Yeah.
obviously. So R.A. Howard is where I started more getting into the sword and sorcery sort of genre.
I'll let you and Rick talk for the next hour now.
Interestingly, so one of my oldest friends and I had been talking, and somehow I missed out on the first set of stories that Howard had written about Conan. And I don't remember, I know I missed out on Frost Giant's Daughter. I had zero idea that it existed as a story. And so it started with a couple of later stories and read all of them from there. And then I think this was then in my 20s. And I suddenly find out there's this like 4 stories or maybe 5 stories that I had never read. And it kind of blew my mind. So I'm having to go back and reread all of them and going, oh, wait, now there's little bits and pieces that suddenly are, slotting into place suddenly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, of course, just, the joy of getting to read more Howard stories. But yeah, so Howard, and a big one lately, I say lately, but probably as of 10 or 12 years ago, even now, Daryl Schweitzer. Huge fan.
Really?
Yeah,
Daryl.
White Isles, all the sorcerers, Kinter, the sorcerer stories, just they're beautiful, they're brilliant, I love them. And then Clark Ashton Smith, of course, and Lord Dunsany. It's poetry, really. I read them, just even the way they put together sentences and words is just, it's brilliant, it's beautiful. That's really what I like. I like when I'm reading. A lot of people, they want these short sentences, they want them clipped, they want them, easily figured out, easily interpreted. And it's like, no, give me something more, give me something better. But again, I grew up reading Tolkien and Shakespeare and so forth. So it's
Daryl also did a really great, in my opinion, Lovecraftian anthology called Cthulhu's Reign. Is that right, guys? About what happens after, a lot of stories are, before the apocalypse or before the, whatever.
Right.
But what about after the old gods have come to Earth, or Cthulhu rises from the sea, or whatever?
Yeah,
So.
I think I've read that one. I believe that was on my list, and I did read it. It would have been a number of years ago now at this point, but yeah, because I went through oh, hey, this is an author, and these are all his books. I'm just going to read everything.
So one of the things we're going to talk about in a little bit is the Wendigo. That's a horror trope, you might say. What are some of yours that you like? You talked about the quiet horror, and you obviously like sword and sorcery. Anything you want to add to that just really?
Trope-wise, yeah. Oh, geez. Well, we've all got our tropes, obviously. I really do like the mixture of the sci-fi elements with horror. Obviously, Alien and Aliens being some of my favorite movies. Also, oh God, I'm blanking now. Of course, on the movie, which of course we talked about before the show was going to happen. Totally.
What about the? I don't think I threw that one at you before the show. But what about some writers working today or books that you've read in the recent past that you've enjoyed a lot?
Well, I read Peter's Reanimators recently. That was just this year, and geez, that was great. It was just wonderful. I think I gave you a 5-star review on Amazon just because it was a wonderful read. I'm going through it. I'm going, oh, hey, look, I get that reference. I get that reference. There were a couple I was clearly hadn't read the source or wasn't connecting something, but yeah, it was great.
There's a lot.
The movie. Pete uses a lot of movies in his works.
I do.
These two guys love that. Oh, I get that reference shit, So
well, yeah,
I loved hearing that, Pete.
Yeah. Actually, my daughters did that to me the other day, and it was like I was so proud.
You've done well, Pete. You've done well.
I've tried.
Oh, I should say the Jeffrey Coombe Lovecraft movies are. I know they are so B and schlocky, but they are just they're pure candy. They're absolutely wonderful.
Which
I cannot
ones?
get enough of them.
Have you seen that Reanimator? Is that what it is, Pete? Yeah. Pete, have you seen that?
I'm not sure. Maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, the Reanimators. I just rewatched. I just rewatched all of them, the entire slew of his, and honestly, he's one of my favorite actors too. Which is, and of course, did Star Trek. And my wife and I'm sitting there with my wife. We're watching DS9, and I'm pointing him out every time he's on screen in makeup.
Yeah.
And yeah, and he's in that role. And there he is. And there he is again.
He's also on Enterprise.
Oh, yes, that's right. He was. Yep.
Played an Andorian.
I like his role in the UFO, the Returned.
Cocoon.
No, the 4400. The
Okay.
4400. He's one of the investigators.
That's it's a series, right?
Yes.
Television show. Okay. Yeah.
So who's gonna write the story where Jeffrey comes as one of the Watchers, and that's why he appears in different forms throughout the Star Trek universe?
There you go.
Just saying, should happen. Someone out there.
Yes, someone out there listening needs to do that.
I do
yeah.
remember reading a fan fiction at one point where somebody took all of Jeffrey Combs' characters and wrote just a story with them.
Fantastic.
So,
It was Lovecraft in the Necronomicon.
and yes, he
Yes.
was Lovecraft in the Necronomicon, and he was in the Michael J. Fox film
Frighteners.
Frighteners. Yeah,
Really? I've never seen Frighteners.
Oh, you should. It's fun.
yeah, you should see Frighteners.
That's one I just watched in the last year. My wife had seen it and she was surprised I had not. So I was like, okay, all right, we'll do this. And
I'm not really into the whole comedy horror thing, right?
I love comedy horror.
Yeah,
Bridget and I have a story for you guys in a minute.
Bridget, singing comedy horror. Thank you
Yes.
for recommending What They Do in the Shadows.
Oh, you're welcome. You love it.
I streamed it all.
Awesome.
I'm
I'm glad you liked it.
I was trying to think, Raven, of a story when we were talking about the Matrix and the 13th floor right at the beginning.
Mhm.
And I found it as we were talking here. It's a short story called Sitcom, and it's in a book called Strange Little Horrors, I think. Strange Little Horrors and Other Stories by Amy Cross. And it's on Kindle Unlimited, and it's pretty cheap, even if you don't have Kindle Unlimited, much like The Dog by Raven here. I cannot say one word about this short story without giving anything away, except to say that the ending is something that I've been waiting for my entire reading science fiction and horror life. So it's really, really good.
at the end, Bob Newhart wakes up in bed and
Mhm.
it was all a dream.
Damn it.
For you, those of you old enough to get that reference.
Yeah, no, it's not that. No, but yeah. Hang on a second. All right. So what other movies you want to mention? And then we're going to talk about Ravenous for a minute.
Actually, so funny story. Right before the show, I'm on my Kindle quick, and Kindle pops up with an ad for me saying, "Do you want to buy this book?" And it's my book. So
That's amazing.
Don't you hate that? I mean,
I'm being
you know,
watched. Feeling.
yeah, I get that all the time. It's like, you have shown interest in this. Maybe you should consider following yourself. I'm like,
I get them all the time for books that the publishers already sent me the arc, and I've read it like 2 months ago. And it's like, are you still interested in this book? No, I read it.
but these are the same people that, and this is part of the algorithm. You go out, you buy a toilet, and then for the next 2 months, they keep trying to sell you a toilet.
yes,
Like how many times do you need to buy a toilet?
That's a great algorithm. Yeah,
Yeah.
really doing its job.
Yeah.
Yeah, the algorithm. My wife mentioned offhand to me something about, I think it was a Nutrisystem bar, and 2 seconds later she gets an ad on Facebook. This Nutrisystem bar it's just flying across the screen. She's like,
So
Okay.
I went to the grocery
Creeps me
store. I bought taco mix. And the next thing in my news feed when I won that evening was like, you can join the taco mafia. How the hell did they know we were having tacos? We
They're
don't even
listening.
have
It's, you know.
Siri, you know.
I don't know. Yeah, it's absolutely weird. I was talking about needing a new chair for my office, and then suddenly Amazon's bringing up chairs, office chairs. So
Do you have a smart speaker?
I do. So I'm certain that's where it heard that. It's
We-
also there's a commercial on, and it's in a different room. And there's a commercial where someone orders stuff off of Amazon. And suddenly my Amazon list pops up on my phone saying with the same items. And I hear hear
What?
Alexa in the other room talking and saying, we've added these items to your list. And I'm like, oh my
Jesus
God.
Christ. You should
Oh
read
my
Gus's
gosh.
book. Speaking of evil smart speakers, This Thing Between Us by Gus
Yeah.
Moreno. Yeah. So I Alexa's really pissed me off with these. And by the way, you know, that's bullshit. I'd get rid of my Alexa. I really would, but it keeps me hooked up with my mom in case she needs me, and it's really helped out on more than one occasion. So, but yesterday I put some muffins in the oven, and I say, Alexa, set a timer for 15 minutes. And Alexa goes, done. I tweeted this. Would you like to start every day with a personal affirmation? And I said, fuck off.
Has it woken you up with fuck off yet?
So Gus replies on it. He replies on Twitter. That's how it starts.
Hey, Mike,
We-
Mike, don't even think our robot or overlords won't remember that instant.
Yeah.
I know.
It's all stored in the cloud. So
We've noticed you've been researching hysterectomies. Here are some feminine hygiene products you should
You'd like to have a hysterectomy?
No.
We notice you've been researching assault weapons. The FBI will be at your door any moment now.
the dangers of being a writer, right? Having to look stuff
Oh,
up.
God.
That is
yeah.
true. Yeah. Yeah. Pete is on so many
Oh my!
watch.
Just gotta wipe my hard drive. Just there's so many rabbit holes you go down, and you're like, I never knew that, and now I really wish I didn't, because my feed is now tainted. Yeah. Oh, that's the other thing that happens, right? You watch something because you need to do some research, or you want to make sure that you're not copying something somebody else did, and you're like, okay, now that I've done that watch, I'll never have to watch another movie like that again. But no, you will be offered every movie that is vaguely like that. And then there will be some movie that's completely has no relationship to anything at all. And it's just shoved in there for some reason, right? It's like, oh, we noticed that you like watching Charlie Chan movies. Maybe you should consider watching Sex in the City.
Some of these recommendations don't make sense based on your watching of this, and I get some completely off base stuff.
Yeah.
So anyway, The Dog is available on Kindle Unlimited in print. It's very inexpensive. It's a novella on Kindle Unlimited. It's very expensive, and print as well.
You should buy it. It's a really good book. Oh,
You should buy it.
I might be biased.
Yeah, Raven. Well, I do think, how do I want to word this? I get sent a lot of stuff, and for me to look at this and go, wait a second, after we do some light editing, I want to publish this. That says what I think of this book, because I get sent people who say, can you read my novella with the possibility of publishing it? Raven did not do that. And besides being a great writer, he's also a very nice guy, which I really respect. He's given me a lot of help over the years with Lovecraft eZine. None of that factored into publishing this, because I could just as easily have said, yeah, I really like it, and here's some places you should submit it to. But I went the extra mile because I wanted to publish it. So,
yeah, that's all I was even looking for. So it was a
Yeah.
really nice surprise to have you say, yeah, I'd love to publish this. So,
Well, I think that's my point, is that as a friend or even colleague or whatever, it's pretty easy to get off of the hook by saying, yeah, I really like it, you should send it somewhere. But I do think it's a really good novella, and that's why I published it as the short version. Kindle Unlimited, like I said. Now on the as to the subject of all the things that Raven has done for Lovecraft eZine over the years, he did something a week or so back. He created a Discord server for us, which I know next to nothing about Discord, despite my son trying to indoctrinate me all the time. And Raven set one up. We were trying Twitter Spaces, and it was just too buggy. And he set up a Discord server for us. And I've gotten several people going, oh, I'm so glad that Lovecraft eZine has a Discord server so I can finally chat with everyone, that sort of thing. Presumably people who aren't on the Facebook message board or whatnot. But Pete's got his hand raised.
Yeah, because okay, so I am apparently a part of 3 or 4 Discord.
You're part of the problem.
Discord things.
Yeah.
And I have no idea what the fuck is going on.
Well, that was exactly where I was going with this. What I was going to ask Raven, what the fuck is going on?
So,
right, just for the person who hasn't used Discord, what is it? And why should Lovecraft eZine have one? Which I believe we should.
It's text chat, for group text chat for everyone. You sign into a server and you can pop in and out, talk to other people, text type to other people. It's like I said, it's a community chat. If you've ever been on IRC back in the day, that's what it's like. Or if you're really old, the old AOL chat rooms.
Well, there's a message board aspect to it.
There is
the message boards, but there's also a
channel
that you can do voice and all that.
Yes, yep. I was actually going to mention that too. We've got a voice channel there in the Discord server, and it's public use. If you want to use it to get together and have a chat with friends, please feel free. It's not hard. You basically just, once you're in the server, you click on the voice channel and you're good to go, as long as you've got your microphone set up.
Yeah. If you can do Zoom, you can do this, really.
Yep.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yep.
But on the voice channel, what we're doing, and I know this will slowly grow just like the podcast did, but just an informal get together every Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern in the voice channel. And I'll be there, 99% of the time for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever, 2 hours if it turns into, 15 people talking and having a good time. But it's just something that I think will slowly grow. And it's just another, I'm glad that you set it up. I appreciate it, because I've had so many people say to me, wow, I'm really glad the eZine has a Discord now, and me all this time not realizing there's a hole here that could be filled. So yeah,
I'm really looking forward to more people using it and more people so please get on there and start conversations. There's a few different channels for books, movies, artwork. You can there's a channel for self-promotion if you're an artist, an illustrator, musician,
and we are getting some use already. We got about 60 people on the server so far, which is pretty good for starting it a week or so ago. So but it's not about the numbers, it's about the quality of conversation on there.
It is, and we're slowly building up, and I think, and we've got some other stuff planned coming up too. So we've got some fun stuff coming up.
So Raven, have you seen the movie Ravenous?
I have actually not. It's been on my list. I was told, one of the eZine folks told me go watch it. I can't remember which one of you it was or when it was.
Well, it wasn't me, because I just watched it with Bridget and her husband this past Wednesday night. Was it, Bridget?
Yeah. It was it wasn't a watch party, it was a simultaneous watch.
Yeah. We're like, all right, ready, 3, 2, 1, push play.
Yeah.
that was,
And then
was
like
fun.
taking screenshots. Okay, we're in the same place. Like, that was hilarious.
Well, when Amazon can do it better than that, we'll do it.
Right. No, it was
Yeah.
fun.
So anyway, of course, Matt's scoffing at us because he does it right every Saturday night with what's the platform again?
Cast.
Cast, yeah. So if you go to Lovecraft eZine website and you click on events, that's one of the ones you'll come across, as well as a new Discord Wednesday event. So we're doing the Mystery Science Theater 3000 thing on Facebook text chat while we're watching the movie. And I had no idea that it was a comedy horror because I'm not into comedy horrors. Okay. I do not steal cars to go watch comedy horrors.
Guilty as charged.
Question.
Mhm.
Question.
Well, I don't know if it is technically a comedy horror,
I don't-
but we
yeah,
made it
I
a
don't
comedy
know.
horror.
Wait,
As we were
this is-
watching it.
Well, it
This
says it on Amazon when it comes up. It says comedy and horror. I'm
Does
like,
it
what
really?
the fuck?
I don't know that
I
it's
don't like
meant
comedy
to be
horrors.
one, but
Is this the French Canadian?
Yeah.
Okay.
The 2017 show.
Well, first it goes. It does
no,
the
it's
Nietzsche
like
quote, and then it
1990 something, isn't it?
the Abyss Nietzsche quote. And I'm like, all right, this is. And then the next quote is "Eat Me" by
Yeah.
Unknown. I'm like, oh no, oh no.
Yes.
But having said all that, was it worth the watch? It was. It was hilarious to watch it with those two.
Yes.
First of all,
Aw, same.
we had so many one-liners.
Yeah, all the cannibal jokes that you can think of. It was a good time.
We got on this because the Wendigo thing that we're going to talk about, and we've actually we have been all talking about lately. So I think it was you, Bridget. You're like, well, I think this is like a Wendigo movie, and so I'm like, all right, let's watch it. And so I've got it up right now, as a matter of fact. Okay, I can't tell you which spots these one-liners were at, but
Oh, you got the chat pulled up. Great.
I do. Here's one: the world's first vegan Wendigo. And then I've got it was all a dream thing. I'm looking at Mike's cat right here. So, but as far as the movie itself, if it would have just been me watching and right when I saw it was a comedy, it would have been like, no. But I'm glad I watched it because it was actually pretty good. So what are your thoughts, Bridget?
I loved it. I thought it was an interesting take on the mythology and just where they went with it. It was very interesting. The military aspect that they had in there with the soldiers and gosh, yeah, I'm trying not to give too much away either, but in some ways, yeah, in a lot of ways, yeah. I'm sure it was amazingly accurate, but yeah, it was a good time.
Yeah, so it's set what, Spanish-American War after
Mexican-American War.
Mexican-American.
Yeah.
All right, so that's the 1999 film with Guy.
Yes.
You would be
Yes.
correct, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah, Guy Pearce. The other thing though that there's a bit of a logic hole though. Pete, you've seen this, right?
I saw it years ago.
Okay.
Well, so the logic is that if you eat the flesh of another human, you become imbued, I guess. They never use the word. Well, yeah, they do use the word Wendigo, but
Mhm.
you become, you've got the power of the Wendigo. You get your dog in your pickup truck back, your wounds heal, that kind of thing. But if that's all it takes, the world would be filled with more than one Wendigo, I would think. I mean, sad to say.
Well, I'm sure there's regional territories. It was like they have to go around marking them so nobody strays into, a different Wendigo's territory.
Well, is this the first time we're
they
finding
didn't seem
out
to care about that.
Yeah, no.
I mean, and on that note,
In many ways, it was a buddy cop movie.
why we always associate Wendigos with wilderness, but if it just takes eating human flesh and being cold, yeah, Toronto and Quebec,
That's what I mean.
they could be filled with Wendigos,
Yeah, we know.
Yeah, we know.
We know.
We're making light
That's
of
why
it.
that's why we're making fun of it.
No, I mean, I'm sure it had a lot to do with the place that they particularly were and the whole mythology
Oh
So
yeah.
of that
Do you all,
area.
That
and
was my
place.
son, by the
Yeah.
way, piping
Yes.
in to tell me I'm wrong.
so you all read
No, it's all
fantasy,
good.
right? You read fantasy. Do you like dark fantasy, like darker than George R. R. Martin? You might like Joe Abercrombie. His first trilogy that he got started with, and I don't remember, 15 years ago, is called Wizard's First Rule. It's 3 books. It's really an amazing, incredibly well-written, wonderful series. But the first rule of a wizard is you do not eat of the flesh of men. Because
If you have to be told
Mhm.
that, I
but
question.
the thing is, though, if you do, you lose your humanity, but you get incredible powers. So the lawful wizards, as it were, the few that there were, would not do this because it was an abomination.
And
So
that made it
just-
an abomination. Right.
Right. Because it's you shall not eat of the flesh of men.
Well,
So-
to Logan's point, this all one would like to say started with Algernon Blackwood's story of the Wendigo, but it of course did not. Who wants to take this? It was Native American legend.
There's an
And they
antholo-
talk about that in the movie.
Yeah, that's true.
There's an anthology called The Wendigo, spelled with an I instead of an E, that has excerpts of all the nonfiction works which mention the legend, and then has the stories by Blackwood and Derleth and so forth.
There's an article on this that was written several years ago on a website called backstoryradio.org. And it talks about the Wendigo and the Native American mythology. The last paragraph reads like this: in the end, pop culture's fascination with the Wendigo may prove a misguided attempt to draw from non-European folklore. I quote, I think audiences and filmmakers alike occasionally get tired of the old, tired and true monsters of the big screen and look outside a Western context for inspiration, said DeSanti, an expert on this. Still, and here's his point, more often than not, the filmmakers simply take the Wendigo and make it into a relatable monster for Western audiences, which kind of defeats the purpose of going outside of a Western context for inspiration in the first place. Which is a very good point. Even in Ravenous, I was thinking, well, these guys are vampires or zombies, whatever.
Yeah, the big complaint often is that, okay, it's a Wendigo, but really it's just a werewolf.
Right.
Yeah, at least that was not the case in this.
Right. And that's not the case in Antlers either, which is the
in
film.
this article also, the true Wendigo does not have antlers, but go on.
Correct. Yes. But that's the film that got us started on this whole Wendigo track.
True.
Yeah, because amongst our people, there's a myth that there's a movie called Antlers that deals with the Wendigo.
I have seen it.
Oh, you've seen it, brother?
I have.
I have. Okay.
I have seen
Well,
it.
I have faith then that is it real? It's real.
It was real. It's real.
It's a real movie.
It is.
All right. Talk about this miracle.
It is. I thought it was pretty good. It is the story of a school teacher who has to deal with a kid who is.
That'd be fucking great after all this time that we've been
It
waiting
is
for
pretty good. In fact, there's a subtle call out because they take this kid's drawings. He's like 6, 7 years old, something. They take his drawings of the Wendigo, and they show it to a Native American guy, and he's like, "Oh, you've got a student who is Native." They're like, "No." It's like, what?
Oh, okay. So
So it calls out the fact that they're
it's a Native American.
appropriating the myth.
Right.
Um,
I like that
and
actually.
I
yeah.
thought that was a pretty cool thing. It's like, okay. There was the creature effect is pretty cool.
Okay.
There is also this thing that I like, and I'm gonna give a little spoiler here. It's infectious. So we can be passed from person to person.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm not going to go into any more details. I really enjoyed it. It's a touching story about one kid trying to deal with drug abuse, and as an allegory for that, and breakdown of the family unit. But yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Not
it
to
was
compare it to vampires, but you remember, of course, it was in the novel, but in Interview with the Vampire, Louis, it's very much an allegory of drug addiction, because Louis says, once he started drinking human blood instead of rats and all that, he goes, in that moment, I, paraphrasing, knew how right Lestat was. Like, I could only find peace by doing this, so.
Right. So there's a comment that one of the characters who succumbs is a meth head, which actually works really well with the imagery of the traditional ravenous Wendigo, being very emaciated and with yellow teeth and yellow eyes and gray, just bad skin. So it worked out really well.
So what about?
You're saying the imagery is really subtle.
No. There's nothing subtle about this film, and I really wish there was something. If it had been just a little subtler, the ending might be just a little better. But
here's a quote from the same article talking about the Native American origins. The Wendigo is believed to be the spirit of water and a symbol of the dangers of selfishness. Although beliefs vary, the Wendigo is generally considered a horrifying entity with an insatiable taste for human flesh. Anyone who encounters a Wendigo risks being devoured or even being turned into a Wendigo. But here's the interesting thing. One usually becomes a Wendigo as punishment for dishonorable or taboo activities, such as engaging in cannibalism due to starvation. Yeah. So I think it mentions it was the Algonquin peoples, that area where it originated.
yes, but there's also variations on the theme throughout most of North America.
There are. So I'm from northern Minnesota originally, and of course we've got the Chippewa tribes up there. And I took a number of Native American studies courses, and we discussed that. It's part of it's part of the lore. And as I recall, there it is. It's seen as a warning about not preparing for the winter and ending up starving. So the Wendigo comes out of not prepping for the winter, and so you end up eating your neighbors.
Right, so, as you do in Wisconsin.
As one does, yes. It's
Actually,
really
so-
cold here. We eat our neighbors.
So that's funny because I make this joke. I went
That's
to
the difference between Iowa and Wisconsin.
You don't eat your neighbors?
We don't. You do.
They just start eating early. I spent some time in Madison, Wisconsin, and first of all, we got there and Lake Minnetonka was frozen solid, and by the week's end, there were people sailboarding on it. So
Yeah,
weird.
welcome.
Yeah,
Welcome
But,
to Wisconsin. If you don't like the weather, wait 5 minutes.
yeah. But all the people I met, they were really, really nice. Like everybody was really, really nice. It was like, I finally asked him, like, why are you people so nice? He said, oh yeah, we have 6 months of winter. If you're an asshole, we kill and eat you. Like, oh, okay.
Reminds me of the quote on Yellowstone. I think it was Yellowstone. He's like, I spent years, some years in Canada, and I just couldn't stand it. They're all too damn nice there. I needed to go back to Texas where, like in Fort Worth, if you just think a negative thought, you can get into a fight with somebody, which is true in Fort Worth, especially.
Yeah.
So,
But
what about the Wendigo in some other movies or in fiction, or Wendigo concepts?
I was going to actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I
I was
think,
gonna, Pete and I keep talking over each other.
Yeah,
No,
one
go
of you
go,
take it,
Raven.
or both.
You're-
of you.
you're-
Okay.
yes.
I was actually going to say Winter Things, which was published in the eZine, which is also mine. It's a short story. And I don't ever say the word Wendigo in that story, but it's based on that mythos. It's based on that lore.
Right.
It's a bunch of French fur traders who are spending the wintering over in the fort, and things get weird and creepy and violent, and by the
Yeah,
time,
and just because I'm no longer publishing a quote unquote magazine or eZine, it's still alive. There are hundreds of Lovecraftian and weird fiction type stories that you can read there. Just go to lovecraftezine.com and click on free Lovecraftian fiction. If you want to find a particular story, just go to look on the right, and in the search bar, type in Winter Things in quotes. That probably get you right to Raven's story, for example. There are a lot of stories there. But yeah, I remember that now, Raven. It's been a while.
Yeah, it has been.
Yeah, what were you going to say, Pete?
Well, you've already whipped out the Ithaquah cycle.
Well,
which,
but I didn't really say anything or who it
Oh,
was
well,
by.
that is goes back to August Derleth adapting the Wendigo myth into the Cthulhu mythos with Ithaquah or Ithaqua, depending on how you phrase it. Just even right down to the description with the tall, thin, emaciated look with the ribs showing through. It's this kind of Wendigo. And then there was that series, that anthology. The other movie that I always think back to on this is Ginger Snaps 3, which
Oh, yeah.
doesn't seem to make any sense at all in the rest of the series, but it's still kind of a good movie.
Yeah, it is.
So Pete watches the same sorts of movies I watch.
Yeah.
Yeah, the terrible, horrible. We're gonna MST3K these things before the night is out.
Yeah.
Well, actually,
Yep.
the expert or the number one fan, the Joe Pulver of werewolves, Stephen Graham Jones, is his favorite werewolf movie is Ginger Snaps.
Yeah, Ginger Snaps 1 and 2 are great films. Ginger Snaps 3 is a good film. It just trying to connect it back to the other two films, is, besides the fact that it stars some of the same people, is really, really hard.
Yeah.
Sort of like Halloween 3.
Yeah, exactly.
There's also another story called Windwalker by Neil John Buchanan in the Lovecraft eZine, in the
Okay.
depths of the Lovecraft eZine, issue 20. Again, the easiest way is just to search in quotes Windwalker, probably. Steve Santiago, as I remember, did a really kick-ass illustration for that.
Yes.
Yeah, really tall, this wintry scene, night winter scene, and the Wendigo is just huge and emaciated at the same time.
And that was a lot of people bought that as a poster, didn't they?
Oh, that's true. Yeah, from Steve. Yeah.
Yeah. I've often, I've written a lot of mythos stories. I don't know, and I've often thought about writing a Wendigo story or a Thakwa story. The problem is I live in Florida.
It's a problem, all right.
It's really hard to get inspired to write an Thakwa story.
Have you ever lived up north?
I was born in Minot, North Dakota, Minot Air Force Base, where the men are men and the sheep are nervous.
Yeah, but how long were you there?
We moved quickly after my dad got out of the service. And I grew up in Philadelphia and Ocean City, Maryland. And
Okay, so you understand winter.
I understand winter. But I moved to Florida in '85 and have rarely gone above the Mason-Dixon line in winter.
So you don't understand winter.
I do understand winter. I don't ever.
That's why you're in Florida.
That's why I'm in Florida. What may happen is that look, there are days, there are times when like today, it's 90 degrees outside, or it feels like 90 degrees outside, and it's December, and I would really like a little bit of a change. That I think about going north again. And then I think that I can do crystal meth. And
And yeah, no one will catch you.
yeah.
Well, it is warmer up here now than when you lived here, so there is that. It's not as we don't have the 20 below winters much anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember those.
Yeah.
Okay, so Matt said, maybe one of you guys can come up with a list of good Wendigo fiction movies and stories for me to publish at a later date. But Matt wanted to talk about Asian horror, right, Matt? Matt said,
What?
I don't know if anyone on our panel is an expert, but maybe we can discuss Japanese, Chinese, Korean horror. It sure is getting a lot of attention on Netflix lately.
I'd say Bridget is the local expert.
No, I'm saying you wrote that.
Yeah, but Bridget's the expert, so I was putting her on the spot. See,
Oh, yeah.
I don't know that I'm like an expert, but I have it is something that I love and that I enjoy watching and getting into more.
so when do you think this trend sort of started? It used to be extremely hard to find anything.
Yes.
It was like 10 years ago, maybe Japanese manga became very, very popular. And then
So-
anime sort of followed. But I remember seeing an anime movie that influenced me heavily called Alakazam the Great, which is a retelling of Journey into the West. I didn't know it at the time. I saw it when I was 5, and it really had a significant impact on me. So there have been these anime movies in Japan for forever. But in terms of getting a foothold, Spirited Away won the first best animated picture in 2001, was it? Or something like that, 2003? When did all these Japanese and Korean series suddenly start to become popular?
About 20
Yeah.
years ago.
That was what I was going to say too. About 20 years ago, when I think probably like when I learned about it and got interested in it is probably when a lot of people did. And that's when they made the US version of The Grudge. Because even though they made a US version, they didn't completely change the, I guess you could say, almost cosmic horror of the end, because there was no hope at the end of the movie, which is, especially for American horror, kind of not a complete expert, but most of our horror, if it doesn't have a happy ending, maybe we're setting up a new
Right.
sequel or whatever. But in general, like, our culture believes that there's hope, that we can somehow overcome the bad. And in The Grudge, it was just a really different thing when it came out, because no, culturally, there's things that are unconquerable by humans. And that's a very different perspective. And so that, for me, when I saw The Grudge interested me in seeing, okay, well, what was the movie it came from? And then, really diving in over the years to see more Asian horror across the board. But
Can I ask also, like, when did binge watching become a thing?
Netflix.
But
Where have you been?
when do you think it started actually becoming a thing that you'll wait for the series to completely drop and you watch it all at once?
Netflix.
Yeah,
10
but
years ago.
you
Yeah.
think?
Yeah.
Okay, because I thought it's like some of these Japanese and like Alice in Borderland and the Squid Game, these are just recent releases that all of a sudden they're just super mining the Korean and Japanese.
So I can't speak for what the CEOs of Netflix, where their mind is at, but I think that when Shudder came out, that was a big deal, because when that app and streaming service came out, there was a lot of foreign horror on there that we didn't necessarily have access to before that. And then Train to Busan came out, and that was a huge success. And that kind of piqued a lot of interest. And then, like you said, a lot of anime. I mean, I don't know when I'm trying to remember, because my son's 18 now, but he really got into manga and anime, about 10 years ago. I know Pete's raising his hand, but
Yeah, you don't have to raise your hand anymore, Pete. You're out.
I have a crate of old manga in the basement. My sons aren't interested in it anymore.
So when my son was about 6, and he's 22 now. So when he was about 6, I would, and so everybody knows my son is Asian. Anyway, I would put him to bed, and then I would go to my room and I would watch Japanese horror films and Korean and Asian horror films, because I was writing a paper on tropes in Asian horror films. And the two tropes I was dealing with were the ghost woman with the hair in front of her face, and the naked boy ghost, which you see a lot in The Grudge and The Ring. We just see this almost 100% naked boy except for some underwear. So I'm writing this paper, and it's like 2:00 in the morning, and I'm like into my 5th version of The Ring. And all of a sudden my door creaks up, and my son walks in. He's like, and he's in his underwear. He's like, "Yay!"
Oh my God, that's hilarious.
Freak the fuck out.
It's a great story.
He's just like, "Oh shit!" And he's like, "What are you doing?" It's like, "No."
Back demon.
Yeah, and it's like in The Grudge, that boy, his voice is a cat. Oh God! So that
yes.
Oh, and it's like,
One of my
Why do-
daughters did that same thing to us. Middle of the night, walks into the room and does that whole, I can't do it.
yeah.
Spot on. And we're just like,
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh.
So I know a lot of people in the chat are mentioning things, way back that are references.
Yes.
Yes, of course. But I think what the point that Matt is trying to get to is, when did it become mainstream in America for us to be watching all of this?
And look, we've
Money.
seen Hausu, and first of all, I have all these Godzilla films on DVD,
yes.
and Asian horror has always been around. Even so, there's question about whether it's real or not, but there's King Kong invades Edo. So if you don't know about this, there's a couple frames of a movie that show a giant gorilla in Tokyo that apparently existed before World War II.
I think 38 is when it came out.
Yeah, there is some debate about whether or not it's real, but the idea is there.
I was going to say 38 as well.
So thank you, Mike. Thank you, Rick. Anyway, it's always existed. And was it Hausu, which is House, is a Japanese horror comedy?
Dr. Hausu?
No, it's just Haozu.
Oh, okay.
And it's also like it's trippy. It's like a 70s psychedelic film. But and then you've got the Korean Host. Bridget, you know this one? The
Korean Host.
it's
The
well,
Host.
no, it's Korean. The movie's Korean. It's called The Host. It's about a
That's
giant.
the giant monster.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's like a tadpole type cat.
Right.
No, I haven't seen that one.
Oh, it's
Oh,
great.
that is really good.
Okay.
Great special effects.
Yeah, great special effects.
It's
Oh.
on my list for movie night sometime.
Yeah.
Oh,
Like say, as far
excellent.
as far
Mhm.
as like, for example, Shudder and Netflix are concerned, I think someone said already, or at least alluded to this, that it's cheap. It was cheaper to get that content. So and then
Yeah, I
people
think
start
it's a lot.
watching it,
Yeah,
and
a lot of it is,
you enjoy it.
accessibility for sure. Also, there's the huge boom I think in K-pop too
Right.
has bursted the interest of folks to seek out some of those things who maybe before wouldn't have. I mean, there's
Right.
a lot of folks on the chat and us that it's like, yes, I hear you. We totally would have seen that stuff way before now, or have really gotten into that stuff way before now. But there's a huge population that's now finding this stuff interesting that didn't
Mike's
know
raising
about
his
it
hand.
before.
Yeah, I've got a question. What is K-pop?
Korean pop.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yeah, no, my son got super, super into that for over the last 6-8
It's
years.
distinguished from J-pop, Japanese pop
Yeah.
music. Anyways, we can all dance Gangnam Style anyway.
Yeah, but I
It's
can.
to-
So
I
can
learned
remember-
a few Korean words. Hey, sexy lady.
Oh my gosh.
I can remember friends of mine in college going back into the 80s. He would drive 2 or 3 hours to get to Orlando. He would rent movies that he could only rent there from the one shop that had anime, and we would bring them back and we would watch them all weekend. And so it's been there. It's been there a long time. It's the question is accessibility. And that has been building up over the last 30 years. And now there's Crunchyroll is its own channel.
Yep.
So,
Mm-hmm.
anime may be the gateway drug, but Asian horror is becoming very popular. And secretly, I watched, what was it? Johnny Sacco and his giant robot, and the Goldar, Silvar, and all these Japanese sci-fi shows that were made for kids, and we watched them in the 70s. They were
Were they
bad.
live action or cartoons?
They were live action.
Yeah. They were like Power Rangers.
Yeah, they were
The
the early
real-
versions of the Power Rangers, and in some cases they were like, there was one where Godzilla, the whole Godzilla outfit was just added. They had added prosthetics to it so that Godzilla could fight Ultraman.
Ultraman.
Do you think the Ultraman was what led to the Power Rangers? I remember that cartoon came out, that live action show came out. I think I had just turned 13 or 14 is when it was showing, and this is still in the 70s.
Yeah.
And the monster budget, oh my God, one monster was like 2 guys wearing hefty bags with a fake head suspended between them.
Yeah,
It's like just
Who had Power
terrible.
Rangers on their bingo card discussion thing for today in the audience?
Well,
Outrageous. Yeah.
Originally was
Somebody's
a-
got to win now.
Before they had the kids show, they used to take Power Rangers for one of the comedy cable stations and just redub them,
yes,
like the same way that Woody Allen had that spy movie, What's Up, Tiger Lily?
Yep.
From Japan. And we get these comedies where the monster was a dolphin, so it had Sylvester Stallone's voice, and it was a disgruntled Vietnam veteran.
and then the other thing I'm thinking back to is Star Blazers in the 80s, which was sort of like 3 different animes that somebody strung together to make a whole different anime.
Mhm.
I believe they did the same thing with Robotech. That the first.
Well, that's
first
what
run.
they
Yep.
did. Yeah, yeah,
Yep.
I
yeah.
not
So
the-
go ahead. No, go ahead, Mike.
I was just thinking about Bridget's point earlier, and not the first time I've heard it or thought of it, of course, but I think it bears repeating that, in a lot of American horror cinema, you still get that happy ending. You still get everything's going to be all right to a certain degree, right? But not in a lot of Asian horror, or
Well-
not in,
Not as much anymore. I mean, I'm just thinking about The Wretched.
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh, yeah,
sure.
that I mean, we're definitely on that train now for sure. We don't,
yeah, but we didn't used to be.
yeah.
We
Right.
started to get bad endings in anthology TV shows in the 60s, like Thriller and Twilight Zone.
True.
And then it gradually gravitated to the movies.
Yeah.
Because I remember when I was watching horror movies in the 70s, I kept going, the monster never wins in a Hammer movie or most American movie. I said, I want to see the
Mhm.
vampire win once in a while. And then they went totally 180 degrees to like the vampire wins all the time.
Obviously those were really great, well-written stories. Rod Serling was a genius, but I wonder if the non-happy ending stories in Twilight Zone were just another refreshing thing about that series for viewers at that time who watched it. So
Yeah,
Pete,
and
did I interrupt? I was going to say, did I interrupt something?
yeah. So here's my train of thought. I also think that there's what we don't see is the whole behind the scenes process where some producer or talent scout or whatever you want to call them goes to Japan and sits down with the studio, or goes to, I've seen a lot of particularly on a Shudder, European horror is big right now in some places. So like it just depends on somebody actually making the effort to go to a studio or putting together a package deal and say,
Mhm.
we're going to buy these, we want these 5 movies. And then the studio going, well, you can have those 5 movies, but you got to take these 15 movies too. And
That's a good point.
then they have to make a deal. It's
Mhm.
just like, well, and I'm wondering if that's why some films get dubbed and some films get subtitled. Just
Hmm.
I used to believe in doing the dubbed, but I don't anymore.
No, there's probably a lot that we're not
Subtitle.
seeing behind the scenes, but I know like the weird thing with the popularity of Squid Game too is that it got hugely popular with people that have never seen it because it is incredibly violent. And yet my husband, who teaches at an elementary school, those kids knew Squid Game. They knew stuff about Squid Game. They knew songs, they knew, but they'd never seen it. And thankfully, a lot of the reasons that they were into it, they're like, oh, but they're kids games and they're fun, and they don't necessarily know that these people are getting murdered. And it's really brutal when you watch it. So
Sure.
it's kind of a phenomenon that particular show just got blown up so much with TikTok and memes and everything else, so that a lot of people who have never seen it and shouldn't see it until they're older.
So for those who
True,
don't
like,
know, not
Alice
me.
in-
are into it.
For those who
Alice in
don't know, not
Borderland
me,
was-
I'm just asking for Matt. What is Squid Game?
Basically, some people who are poor get roped into signing up for competitive games, and if they lose the games, they get shot, and if they win all the way through, they get rich, supposedly.
Why would I watch this again?
It's on Netflix.
I mean, it is actually
No, not how. Why?
it is actually a really good, compelling drama, but it
Okay.
is really hard to watch. And sometimes, I mean, it really hard to watch.
Well, it's like Alice in Borderland. Did you see that? It's the Japanese movie about people who suddenly are somehow transported from real Tokyo to an alternate Tokyo, and they have to compete in these games, contests, challenges. If they win, they live and they collect a card. and if they lose, they die, and if they don't compete in the games, they die. It's very, very dehumanizing, senseless violence. It didn't get nearly the airplay or the buzz that Squid Game did. It came out a little earlier. It's a very similar show, but it's not a corporation that we know about. Maybe there's one in the shadows.
I can remember a few years ago when my daughters were watching the Hunger Games films, and they came to me and said, "Dad, this is so dystopian and so horrible. I've never seen anything like it." And I mic dropped Battle Royale on them and just walked away. And then they came back and said, "We're sorry." And they're like, "Did they just really rip off Battle Royale?" And I'm like, "That's up to you to decide."
Oh my gosh, somebody on the live chat said, "I haven't seen Squid Game yet. Is it like Battle Royale?"
Well, they ripped it off of
Right as you said that, Pete.
They ripped the Hunger Games off of, well, not ripped, it was inspired by the Legend of the Minotaur.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, we could say this is all ripped off from the gladiators of Rome. Like,
Right.
really.
The lottery.
I mean, that
something in the
concept
code.
is age old.
Yes.
I
But
think-
yeah, I mean, I can. So let's go back to the huge influence, the Magnificent Seven
From Seven Samurai.
is the Seven Samurai,
Right.
just retold. And so we have been stealing from Asia for a long time.
Well, yeah. I mean,
Well, they bought the
the-
rights
the-
to Seven Samurai
Yeah,
when they made that. Unlike Sergio Leone, who based Fistful of Dollars on Jimbo without paying for it and got sued for it.
right.
well, when you're a 250-year-old country, I mean, you have to steal from somewhere, right?
Yes. But no, so Asian horror is popular. I can remember when British horror was popular. I can remember when French horror was popular. I've seen Germany. I've seen Scandinavian. It rises and falls. And, I can remember, oh my God, Japan is the future of horror. No, Korea is the future of horror. It's like, it's going to go back and forth.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get a little annoyed by that question when I occasionally get, what do you think the future of, X horror is? Well,
If I knew that, I would be a billionaire.
I think the answer
Right,
is a lot of things. It just depends on if you're talking about a year from now or 5 years from now.
Well, and people, the art comes from the creators. So unless you know all the future creators out there, you're not going to know what they're going to create. I mean,
And you
Right.
just never know what's
And
gonna
it's a lot of times it's just somebody gets lucky with a cultural zeitgeist. Everything comes together and they're
very true.
Yes.
Yeah.
I like
Yeah,
that
this,
cultural zeitgeist. That's
Yeah.
That's
And
amazing.
the hopeful, comforting aspect of horror, as opposed to, you don't necessarily get a happy ending. In fact, most of the time you don't, is really well illustrated in The Woman in Black, the book. At the beginning of the book, the protagonist, he's on his second marriage, and it's Christmas in England, and it's Christmas Eve in England, excuse me. And his kids and grandkids, they're all gathered around the fire and everything. And as they do in England, they want to tell ghost stories. The problem is he's very uncomfortable with it because he's actually years earlier had something truly awful happen to him. He had his own ghost story, basically. And he says something to the effect, or he thinks something to the effect, excuse me, of that he was trying not to blurt out, no, you do not understand. It is nothing like this. It's horrible. And, I don't have the book in front of me, but it really paints the difference strongly, so. And also that particular, I really enjoyed the movie, The Woman in Black with Daniel Radcliffe. I asked Susan Hill about it once, and she said, "Yeah, I really liked the movie too. I thought they really stayed true to the spirit of the book and the storyline in most cases." And yeah, and I'm like, until the ending, right? And she's like, "Yeah, but still, they did a great job with it." Now, The Woman in Black too, not so much, but yeah, it's a really good book and it's a really good movie. So, and there's another. I've never seen the previous one. Pete, have you seen that one? From
No,
what is it,
I don't
the
think
80s?
the one I always get confused with is there's the woman in white.
Right. That's about the boy who gets stuck in a attic or something for a while.
Yeah, he sees somebody murder a woman.
Right.
And then he's haunted by that woman for the rest of his life until he figures out that it was his uncle or his father that murdered the woman. Oops,
Okay,
sorry.
Rosebud.
Yep.
Anything else we need to talk about?
I mean, is there anything we need to talk about? No, but that doesn't
No,
matter.
That's true. Is there anything we want to talk about? What is Season's Screamings? That's what I want to know.
Oh,
That's what
okay.
the audience wants to know too.
Well, I hope they do. You'll have to find out. No, I actually just found out about it. It was about a month ago or something. So Midsummer Screams is a huge con that's here in June for like the haunter community. And this is run by those same people. So it's like a December holiday version of that. So I didn't really know what to expect because I haven't been to Midsummer Screams. I definitely want to go though in June, but
This is in LA, right?
it was in Pasadena, yeah.
Okay.
So but I just thought, wow, this is, a different break from your usual holiday activities. So I'm gonna go check that out. And it was really fun. So we spent actually most of the time in the dealer room, which was really great. Just a lot of artists and fun things. There were a few booths that were that had some like figures and things like that, but a lot of it was just art. And then there was a room that it was all dark in there mostly, and they had some displays that were spooky spirit kind of things. There were holiday wintry themed, but also scary. There was a little display of like Scrooge and Marley, and there was a parade of Krampuses that came through. I actually got spanked by a couple of them with their branches.
Are you going to go into more detail about that, Bridget?
No.
I do also want to ask you, because I've been meaning to, and you've been talking, I've been looking at your background.
Yeah. Yeah.
You and your husband just moved recently, and so you made a new little nook corner for yourself.
I did.
So I like that picture over your right shoulder a lot.
This one.
Other right.
Oh, my actual right.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, you're right, my right. The Dracula poster.
Nope. Yeah. The other one.
This one?
Yep.
Oh, cool. Yeah, that's a Amy Brown. I love her art.
Amy Brown?
Yeah, she has a lot of fairy art.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And then I like Edward Gorey, so I had to get the Dracula poster.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Oh, I love Edward Gorey. Yeah.
Bridget, you know that Edward Gorey's illustrated Dracula was just re-released.
Is it really? Oh man. Okay.
Ross Lockhart at whatchamacallit, Word Horde has copies.
Oh, okay. Thanks
really
for that
nice
tip.
Red velvet kind of.
Oh my goodness.
It's beautiful.
Okay. I'm gonna have to look for that.
Edward Gorey.
Yeah.
Masterpiece Theater mystery.
Yeah.
No, I know who Edward Gorey is. I'm
Yeah,
looking for
he's
this
just one of
book.
my favorite illustrators ever.
Is this Dracula Deluxe Edition?
Yep.
It's not a bad
Okay, it's
price.
called. Mike found it faster than I did.
I see it on Amazon for $30 hardcover.
Yeah. It's
okay.
nice.
Wow. Speaking of Dracula,
Awesome.
you see how we get off on these tangents, Raven?
Yes. So what happens?
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
We start at A and end up at
So
59.
all of us
Um,
can probably
42.
to being
Bingo.
some,
yes.
all of us can probably admit to being some kind of neurodivergent. And you put
Yep.
us all together, and this is a
Topic?
I'm not racist. I don't know about you guys.
I don't know. I'm a peacekeeper. What is the divergent again? I'm just kidding. I'm teasing.
Like last night, I said, I hit the nail right between the eyes on that one, and Danielle's like, "That's a mixed metaphor." Like, I know it's a mixed metaphor. That's why it's funny. But
I
Danielle
don't
and
keep
Logan
kosher,
did not
so-
agree with me. So
Was it the lawmakers? I can't remember the different ones.
Anyways.
ADHD.
speaking of Dracula,
No,
Audible has a reading with different actors. It's a straight up reading, but it's different actors
Yes.
for the different, letters that are written in the book.
Yep.
This is essentially what the book is.
I heard a recent there's a recent version of Dracula released, which was trying to get into that experience. So it's like it was actually sort of deconstructed. You had a stack of letters, you had a journal. It was like you had photographs of things written on the back. It was sort
that's
of like
neat.
the complete text of the novel, but you were experiencing it as like, oh, here's the letter from Mina or whatever.
That's really cool.
It'd be more immersive for sure.
Right. It just seemed like lots of money, and my wife would, do mean things to me.
Right.
Mike, are you talking about the Dracula release where Tim Curry is one of the voices on it?
I am, yeah.
Okay. All right.
And oh shoot, I can't think of the other actors in it right now. But it's so great.
Oh yeah, here we go. Tim Curry, Alan Cumming.
Alan Cumming, that's who I was trying to think of.
Okay.
But yeah, it's really, really good. And it's not
Yeah,
an
it
audio
is.
drama. Everybody knows I like audio dramas, but it's not that. It's just a different actor for each character. So not each character, but for each letter written, I should say, or journal entry written. So, all right. So, anything else we need to talk about?
I just have to say the amusing part here is I didn't realize ahead of time we were going to be talking about the Wendigo and cannibalism and Ravenous.
Or you would not have come on the show.
No, actually, the funny part is, so normally tonight is my gaming night. And one of the sayings with our game, because it keeps happening, is that it always comes around to cannibalism. So that's going to be a little bit of a treat for my gaming group is, hey guys.
I can't even get away from
powers.
you guys for one night.
Right? Guess what we discussed?
Yes, Matt.
Okay, so remember, we do have a prize. It's this really nice hardcover edition of the first part of Providence by Alan Moore. It's Act 1. The art by Jason Burrows is fantastic. It isn't the entire story. It's just the first part of 3. But if you want to look into it, send an email to ezineprizes@gmail.com. Put Providence in the subject heading. We're going to draw a winner in about 6 weeks, so that might even be close to February 1st or something. You got plenty of time to get an entry in.
You guys got your Christmas shopping done?
yeah, I went and dropped $100 at Total Wine last night.
So yes.
So what am I getting? No, just kidding.
I don't know. I'm not your secret Santa.
I know.
I'll tell you one thing. My secret Santa goes the extra mile. What do I mean? I will tell you what I mean.
I got
Go
a
ahead,
generous gift from Mike.
What's
Well,
that?
did you already open them up? No, you're not supposed to open.
He's not my secret Santa.
Doctor Who, the 12 Doctors.
Oh, fancy.
Hey, Mike, when is my generous gift coming?
Yeah, where's mine?
Your generous gift is being on the show. You said so yourself.
I lied.
I will not mention who my secret Santa is. But
Wow.
look at what was on the
Nice.
side of the box. This guy goes
That's
the extra
cool.
mile.
Wait,
That's fancy.
we had to send them to each other, so
It's not really a secret.
yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. You rock, man. Kevin
Hey.
Joyner.
So I was going to say something that was really smart and pithy, and it completely went out of my head.
I have a question. Was I supposed to send somebody something?
Contract.
Oh, for the secret Santa thing.
Oh, yes, you were.
Well, I did.
All right.
All right. Next week, we've got Corey Herndon, because Corey wants to talk to Rick, and in small print, me and us about Doctor Who. So, and
Cool.
I'm sure we'll find other things to talk about too, because we usually do.
And in that regard, I just want to mention, if you see the Spider-Man movie, they borrow from Doctor Who.
Okay.
All right.
There's a TARDIS.
Or at least a tardigrade.
The ending resolution has been done in Doctor Who twice at least.
Oh, okay. All right.
Peter regenerates.
Kind of. I don't know. I haven't seen it.
No, more in the Pete Capaldi, Matt Smith era.
Okay.
I'm not
Well,
gonna. I'm not gonna
yeah.
think about it too hard, so I don't spoil myself.
Well, anyway, guys, thanks for being here. Really appreciate everyone who is a Patreon, especially because you literally keep all of this going. And now whenever I go on Wikipedia and they do their whatever it is twice a year, if everyone would just send us $3, we could keep going. I'm like, I have to do this. I have to at least send them $3 because I know what that feels like, because I've got a lot of people sending me, some small, some greater amounts that altogether it keeps the eZine going financially. So thanks to all of you for that. And on that note, on Monday evening at 9 Eastern, I'm going to do another in my series, Deep Background series. It's going to be Nadia Bolkin. So
great.
of course that'll be live, but panelists here are welcome to join. And we usually do those on Thursdays when we do them, but I needed to reschedule, and she was fine with that. And of course, if you can't watch it live or listen to it live as a Patreon, you can always do that later as well. So that's just, everybody almost $5 and up. So it doesn't take much. There's a lot of other cool things you can get. So thanks to all of you, keep me going. Thanks to you guys for keeping me going and being here every week. If I don't see all of you before or talk to you guys, I hope everybody has a great holiday. I know why. Well, my wife's off for 2 weeks, so I'm really happy about that.
Lucky.
Yeah. Now, I know I'm not being sarcastic for anybody.
No. You're lucky. Our wives work in the same field, and mine is not getting, I think, the full 2 weeks. She's right up until
that's too bad.
Christmas. So.
Yeah. Anyway, I appreciate all of you watching, and Patreons, and you guys, and thanks for being a part of this, whatever part you play. And we will see you next week. We'll talk with Corey about Doctor Who and go from there. Thanks. Everyone have a good night.